Section 7. Vayetse. PGS. 252-228. 5 miracles were wrought for our father Jacob at the time that he went forth from Beersheba. The first sign. The hours of the day were shortened, and the sun went down before his time, forasmuch as the Word had desired to speak with him. The second sign. The 4 stones which Jacob had set for his pillow he found in the morning had become 1 stone. Sign the third. The stone which when all the flocks were assembled they rolled from the mouth of the well, he rolled away with one of his arms. The fourth sign. The well overflowed, and the water rose to the edge of it, and continued to overflow all the days that he was in Haran. The fifth sign. The country was shortened before him, so that in 1 day he went forth and came to Haran. And he prayed in the place of the house of the sanctuary, and lodged there, because the sun had gone down. And he took 4 stones of the holy place, and set his pillow, and slept in the red place. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was fixed in the ground, and the top of it reached to the height of heaven. And, behold, the 2 angels who went into Sedom, and who had been expelled from the midst of them, because they had revealed the secrets of the Lord of the world, and being cast forth they had walked till the time that Jacob went out from the house of his father, and had accompanied him with kindliness unto Bethel. In the red day had ascended to the high heavens, and said, Come, see Jacob the pious, whose likeness is inlaid in the throne of glory, and whom you have so greatly desired to behold. Then the rest of the angels of the Holy Lord descended to look upon him. Jerusalem. 5 signs were wrought for our father Jacob at the time he went forth from Beersheba to go unto Haran. The first sign. The hours of the day were shortened for him, and the sun was hidden from him before its time, because his word had desired to speak with him. The second sign. After our father Jacob had lifted up his feet from Beersheba, the country was shortened before him, and he found himself sitting in Haran. The third sign. The stones which Jacob our father had taken in the evening, and set as the resting place of his head, when he had risen in the morning, be found had all become 1 stone, and the red is the stone which he set up in the first covenant, pouring oil upon the top of it. The fourth sign. When all the shepherds had gathered together at the stone to roll it from the mouth of the well, and could not, then came our father Jacob and lifted it with 1 hand, and watered the flock of Laban his mother's brother. The fifth sign. After our father Jacob had lifted the stone from the mouth of the well overflowed, and was overflowing 20 years, all the days that our father Jacob dwelt in Haran. These 5 signs were wrought for our father Jacob in the time when he departed from Beersheba to go to Tsiraan. 12. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was fixed in the earth, and the summit of it reached to the height of heaven. And, behold, the angels who had accompanied him from the house of his father ascended to make known to the angels on high, saying, Come, see Jacob the pious, whose likeness is in the throne of glory, and whom you have been desirous to see. And behold, the holy angels from before the Lord ascended and descended, and looked upon him. And, behold, the glory of the Lord stood above him, and he said to him, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which thou art lying I will give to thee and to thy sons. And thy sons shall be many as the dust of the earth, and shall become strong on the west and on the east, on the north and on the south. And all the kindreds of the earth shall through thy righteousness and the righteousness of thy sons be blessed. And, behold, my word is for thy help. I will keep thee in every place where thou shalt go, and will bring thee again to this land, for I will not leave thee until the time when I have performed all that I have told thee. And Jacob awoke from his sleep, and said, Verily the glory of the Lord's Shekinah dwelleth in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid, and said, How dreadful and glorious is this place! This place is not common, but the sanctuary of the name of the Lord, the proper spot for prayer, set forth before the gate of heaven, and founded beneath the throne of glory. And Jacob arose in the morning, and took the stone which he had placed for his pillow, and set it standing, and poured oil on the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, because was the name of the city at the first. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If the word of the Lord will be my helper, and will keep me from shedding innocent blood, and from strange worship, and from impure converse, in this way that I am going, and will give me bread to eat, and raiment to wear, and will bring me back in peace to my father's house, the Lord shall be my God. And this stone which I have set, 4. A pillar shall be ordained for the house of the sanctuary of the Lord. And upon it shall generations worship the name of the Lord, and of all that thou mayest give me, the 10th will I separate before thee. 29. And Jacob lifted up his feet lightly to proceed, and he came to the land of the children of the cast. And he looked and saw, and behold, there was a well in a field, and behold, there 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because from the well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was laid upon the mouth of the well. And they gathered the flocks there, and rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and set the stone on the mouth of the well in its place. And Jacob said to them, My brethren, whence are you? And they said, From Haran are we. And he said to them, Know you Laban Barnachor? And they said, We know. And he said, Hath he peace? And they said, Peace. And behold, Rahel his daughter cometh with the sheep. And he said, Behold, the time of the day is great, it is not time to gather home the cattle, water the sheep, and let them go again to pasture. Jerusalem, it is not time to gather. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together, and we roll a stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep. While they were speaking with him, Rahel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess at the time. Because there had been a plague from the Lord among the sheep of Laban, and but few of them were left, and he had dismissed his shepherds, and had put the remaining flock before Rahel his daughter. And it was when Jacob saw Rahel the daughter of Laban his mother's brother that Jacob went nigh, and rolled the stone with one of his arms from the mouth of the well, and the well uprose. And the waters ascended to the top of it, and he watered the sheep of Laban his mother's brother, and it uprose for 20 years. And Jacob kissed Rahel, and lifted up his voice, and wept. And Jacob told unto Rahel that he was come to be with her father to take one of his daughters. And Rahel answered him, Thou canst not dwell with him, for he is a man of cunning. And Jacob said to her, I am more cunning and wiser than he, nor can he do me evil, because the word of the Lord is my helper. And when she knew that he was the son of Rivkah, she ran and made it known to her father. And it was when Laban heard the account of the strength and piety of Jacob the son of his sister, how he had taken the birthright and the order of blessing from the hand of his brother, and how the Lord had revealed himself to him at Bethel, how the stone had been removed, and how the well had upflowed and risen to the brink, he ran to meet him and embrace him, and kissed him, and led him into his house, and he related to Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Truly thou art my near one and my blood, and he dwelt with him a month of days. And Laban said to Jacob, Though thou art reputed my brother, shouldst thou serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall be thy wages? And Laban had 2 daughters, the name of the elder Leah, and the name of the younger Rahel. And the eyes of Leah were moist, or dropping, running, from weeping and praying before the Lord that he would not destine her for Esau the wicked. And Rahel was beautiful in appearance, and of a fair countenance. Jerusalem. And the eyes of Leah were tender, for she had wept and prayed that she might not be brought up in the lot of Esau. And Rahel was beautiful in appearance, and of fair countenance. And Jacob loved Rahel, and he said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rahel thy younger daughter. And Laban said with deceit, It is better that I give her to thee than to another man abide with me. And Jacob served for Rahel 7 years, and they seemed in his eyes as a few days, because he loved her. And Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for the days of my service are completed, and I will go in with her. And Laban gathered all the men of the place, and made them a feast. Answering he said to them, Behold, 7 years since Jacob came to us, the wells have not failed, and the watered places are multiplied. And now come, let us counsel against him cunning counsel, that he may remain with us. And they gave him cunning counsel that he should take Leah to him instead of Rahel. Jerusalem. And Laban gathered all the people of the place, and made a feast. And Laban answered and said to them, Behold, 7 years are from the coming of this just man to us, our waterings have not failed, and our springs are many. And now come, give me counsel how we may settle or subject him among us yet 7 years. And they gave him cunning counsel to take Leah to him instead of Rahel. And it was in the evening that he brought Leah his daughter, and introduced her to him, and he went in with her. And Laban gave to him Zilpah his daughter, whom his concubine had borne to him, and he delivered her to Leah his daughter to be her handmaid. And it was the time of the morning, and he saw her. And behold, she was Leah, whom all the night he had thought to be Rahel, because Rahel had delivered to her all the things with which Jacob had presented her. But when he saw this, he said to Laban, What is this that thou hast done to me? Was it not for Rahel that I served with thee? Why hast thou deceived me? And Laban said, It is not so done in our place to give the younger before the elder. Fulfill now the 7 days of the feast to this, and I will give thee also that for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. Jerusalem. Fulfill the 7 days of this feast of Leah, and I will give. And Jacob did so, and fulfilled the 7 days of the feast of Leah, and he gave him Rahel his daughter to wife. And Laban gave to Rahel his daughter Bilhah, whom his concubine bare him, and he delivered her unto her to be her handmaid. And he went in also unto Rahel, and he loved Rahel also more than Leah. And he served with him for her yet 7 other years. And it was revealed before the Lord that Leah was not loved in the sight of Jacob, and he said in his word that sons should be given her, and that Rahel should be barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and called his name Reuben. For she said, My affliction was manifest before the Lord. Therefore now will my husband love me, for my affliction hath been manifested before the Lord, as will be the affliction of my children before the Lord, when they shall be enslaved in the land of the Zeri. And she conceived again, and bare a son. And she said, Because it was heard before the Lord that I was hated, and he gave me this also. And so will be heard before him the voice of my children when they shall be enslaved in Mizraim. And she called his name Shimeon. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, This time will my husband be united to me, because I have borne him 3 sons, and thus will it be that my children shall be united to serve before the Lord. Therefore she called his name Levi. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, This time will I give praise before the Lord, for from this my son kings shall come forth. And from him shall spring David the king, who shall offer praise before the Lord. Therefore she called his name Jephudah. And she ceased to bear. XXX. And Rahel saw that she bare not to Jacob, and Rahel was envious of her sister, and said to Jacob, Pray before the Lord that he give me children, and if not, my life I shall reckon as the dead. And the anger of Jacob was strong against Rahel, and he said, Why do you ask of me? Ask before the Lord, from before whom are children, and who hath restrained from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold, my handmaid Bilhah, enter with her, that she may bear, and I may increase and may be builded up from her. And she made her handmaid Bilhah free, and delivered her to him, and Jacob entered with her. And Bilhah conceived, and bare a son to Jacob. And Rahel said, The Lord hath judged me in his good mercies, he hath also heard the voice of my prayer, and given me a son, and so it is to be that he shall judge by the hand of Shimshon bar Manavach, who shall be of his seed, and hath he not delivered into his hand the people of the Philistines? Therefore she called his name Dan. And Bilhah the handmaid of Leah conceived again, and bare a second son to Jacob. And Rahel said, With affliction afflicted was I before the Lord in prayer, therefore he hath received my request that I might have a son as my sister, and hath given me 2. Even so my children to be redeemed from the hand of their enemies when they shall afflict themselves in prayer before the Lord. And she called his name Naphtali. And Leah saw that she had ceased from bearing, and she made Zilpah her handmaid free, and gave her unto Jacob to wife. And Zilpah the handmaid of Leah conceived, and bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, Good fortune cometh, his children shall surely inherit the habitation on the east side of Jordan. And she called his name Gad, Jerusalem. And Leah said, Good success cometh, for the feastings of the Gentiles are to be cut off. And she called, and Zilpah the handmaid of Leah bare a second son to Jacob. And Leah said, Praise shall be mine. For the daughters of Israel will praise me, as his children will be praised before the Lord for the goodness of the fruit of his land. And she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of VII in the time of wheat harvest, and found javruch and mandrakes in the field, and he brought them to Leah his mother. And Rahel said to Leah, Give me now of thy son's mandrakes. And she said to her, Is it a little thing that thou hast taken my husband, and thou seekest to take also my son's mandrakes? And Rahel said, Therefore shall he lie with thee this night for thy son's mandrakes. Jerusalem. For a week he shall consort with thee. And Jacob came from the field at evening. And Leah heard the voice of the braying of the ass, and knew that Jacob had come. And Leah went forth to meet him, and said, Thou wilt enter with me, because hiring I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes from Rahel my sister. And he lay with her that night. And the Lord heard the prayer of Leah, and she conceived, and bare to Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, The Lord hath given me my reward, for that I gave my handmaid to my husband, even so shall his children receive a good reward, because they will occupy themselves with the law. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bare a sixth son to Jacob, and said, The Lord hath endowed me with a good dowry by children. This time will the habitation of my husband be with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And thus shall his children receive a good portion. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterward she bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah, for she said, Judgment is from before the Lord, that there shall be from me a half of the tribes, but from Rahel my sister shall go forth 2 tribes, even as they shall proceed, in like manner, from each of the handmaids. And the prayer of Leah was heard before the Lord, and the infants were changed in the wombs, and Joseph was given to the womb of Rahel, and Dinah to the womb of Leah. And the remembrance of Rahel came before the Lord, and the voice of her prayer was heard before him, and he said in his word that he would give her sons. Jerusalem. 4 keys are held in the hand of the Lord of all the world, even the Lord, and he will not deliver them either to angel at Asarif, the key of the rain, the key of the provender, the key of the sepulchre, the key of barrenness, the key of rain. For thus the scripture expoundeth, The Lord shall open unto thee his good treasure, and see, the key of provender. For thus the scripture expoundeth, Thou openest thine hand, and see, the key of the sepulchre. For thus the scripture expoundeth, When I shall open your sepulchre, and see, the key of barrenness. Scripture expoundeth, And Elohim remembered Rahel, and see. And the word of the Lord remembered Rahel in his good compassions, and the word of the Lord heard the voice of her prayer, and he said in his word that he would give her children. And she conceived, and bare a son, and said, The Lord hath gathered off my reproach, even as Jehoshua the son of Joseph will gather off the reproach of Mizraim from the sons of Israel, and will circumcise them beyond Jordan. And she called his name Joseph, saying, The Lord will add me yet another son to this one. And it was when Rahel had borne Joseph, Jacob said by the Holy Spirit concerning the house of Joseph, They are to be as a flame to consume the house of Esau. And he said, Therefore will I not be afraid of Esau and his legions. And he said unto Laban, Send me away, and I will go to my place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and I will go, for thou knowest my service with which I have served thee. But Laban said to him, If now I have found grace in thy eyes, Jerusalem, I have observed by divination that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, Appoint thy wages with me, and I will give thee. And he said to him, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle have been kept by me. For the little flock which thou hadst before me hath increased greatly, and the Lord hath blessed thee at my foot, that I have been profitable to thee from the time of my coming into thy house. And now when shall I do the work for which I am bound to nourish the men of my house? And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything else, but give me this thing, and I will return and pasture thy flock, and keep them. I will pass through thy whole flock today, and will set apart every lamb streaked and spotted, and every black lamb among the lambs, and spotted and streaked among the goats, and they shall be my wages. Jerusalem, every lamb spotted and streaked, and every black lamb among the lambs, and the spotted and streaked among the goats, and my righteousness shall testify for me tomorrow, when my wages shall be brought before thee. Every one which is not streaked or spotted among the goats, or black among the lambs, shall be as if it had been a theft of mine. And Laban said to him, Well, let it be according to thy word. And he separated that day the goats which were marked in the feet, and the spotted, and all the goats streaked or spotted, every one which had a white place in him, and every black one among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set a journey of 3 days between his flocks and those of Jacob. And Jacob tended the flock of Laban, the old and the feeble which were left. And Jacob took to him a rod of flowering poplar, and of almond, and of the plane tree, and peeled in them white peelings to disclose the white which was in the rods. And the rods which he had peeled he fixed in the canals, in the troughs of water, at the place to which they brought the flocks to water. There placed he them over against the flock, that they might conceive when they came to drink. Jerusalem, in the canals, and the sheep conceived over against the rods, and the sheep produced such as were marked in the feet, and spotted and white in the backs. And the lambs did Jacob set apart, and place in front of the flocks. All the various coloured and the black among Laban's sheep be set for himself a flock apart, and did not mix them with the sheep of Laban. And it was that whenever the early prime sheep conceived, Jacob set the rods in the canals before the eyes of the sheep, that they might conceive before the rods. But with the late sheep he did not set them, and the late sheep were Laban's, and the early ones Jacob's. And the man increased greatly, and had a multitude of flocks, and handmaids, and servants, and camels, and asses. 31. But he heard the words of the sons of Laban, saying, Jacob hath taken all that was our father's, and from that which was our father's he hath made himself all the glory of these riches. And Jacob observed the looks of Laban, and behold, they were not peaceful toward him as yesterday and as before it. And the Lord said to Jacob, Return to the land of thy fathers, and to thy native place, and my word shall be for thy help. And Jacob sent Naphtali, who was a swift singer, and he called Rahel and Leah, and they came into the field into his flock. And he said to them, I consider the looks of your father, and behold, they are not peaceful with me as yesterday and as before it, but the God of my father hath been to my aid. And you know that with all my strength I have served your father, but your father hath deceived me, and hath changed Jerusalem, hath commuted my wages 10 portions, yet the Lord hath not given him power to do me evil. If now, he said, the street shall be thy wages, all the sheep there staked, and if now, he said, the spotted footed shall be thy wages, all the sheep there those which were spotted in the feet. And the Lord hath taken away the flock of your father, and hath given it to me, Jerusalem, and the word of the Lord hath taken away. And it was at the time when the flocks conceived, that I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the goats which rose upon the flock were spotted in the feet, or streaked or white in the backs. And the angel of the Lord said to me in a dream, Jacob. And I said, Behold me, Jerusalem. Jacob answered in the holy tongue, and said, Behold me. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see. All the goats that rise upon the flock are spotted in the feet, or streaked or white in the backs. Because all the injury that Laban hath done thee is manifest before me. I am a Loba, who did reveal myself to thee at Bethel, where thou didst anoint the pillar, and swear the oath before me. Arise now, go forth from this land, and return to the land of my birth. And Rahel answered with the consent of Leah, and said to him, Can there now be yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not considered by him as strangers? For he hath sold us, and eating he hath eaten our money. Therefore all the wealth that the Lord hath taken from our father is ours and our children's. And now all that the Lord hath said to thee, do. Jerusalem, are we not considered strangers to him? For he hath sold us, and behold, he is not willing to give us our dowry. Closing square bracket. And Jacob arose, and set his children and his wives upon camels. And he led all his herds and his substance which he had obtained in Paddan Aram to go unto Isaac his father in the land of Canaan, Jerusalem, his treasure. And Laban had gone to shear his flock, and Rahel stole the images. For they had slain a man, a firstborn, and had cut off his head. They salted it with salt and balsams, and wrote incantations on a plate of gold, and put it under his tongue, and set it up in the wall, and it spake with them, and unto such the father bowed himself. And Jacob stole the knowledge of Laban the Aramite, in that he did not show him when he went. And he went he with all that he had. And he arose and crossed the Pharat, and set his face to ascend toward the mountain of Gilead, because he saw by the Holy Spirit that from thence would be deliverance for his sons, in the days of Jetach, who was of Gilead. But after Jacob had gone, the shepherds went to the well, but found no water, and they waited 3 days, if that it might again overflow. But it overflowed not. And then came they to Laban on the 3rd day, and he knew that Jacob had fled, because through his righteousness it had flowed 20 years. Jerusalem. And it was, when the shepherds were gathered together, they sought to water the flock, but were not able, and they waited 2 and 3 days, if that the well might overflow. But it overflowed not. And then came they to Laban in the 3rd day, because Jacob had fled. And he took his kinsman with him, and pursued after him, going 7 days, and overtook him, while sojourning in Mount Gilead, offering praise and praying before his God. And there came an angel with a word from before the Lord, and he drew the sword against Laban the deceitful in a dream of the night, and said to him, Beware lest thou speak with Jacob from good to evil. And Laban came upon Jacob. And Jacob had spread his tent in the mountain, and Laban made his brethren abide in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done? Thou hast stolen my knowledge, and led away my daughters like captives of the sword. Why didst thou hide from me that thou wouldst go and steal my knowledge, and not tell me? For if thou hadst told me, I would have sent thee away with mirth, and with hymns, and with tambourines, and with harps. Neither hast thou suffered me to kiss the sons of my daughters, nor my daughters. Now hast thou been foolish in what thou hast done. There is sufficiency in my hand to do evil with thee, Jerusalem. There are strength and ability. But the God of thy father spake with me in the evening, saying, Be careful of speaking with Jacob from good to evil. Now going thou wilt go, because desiring thou hast desired the house of thy father. But why hast thou stolen the images of my idols? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I feared, and said, Lest thou violently take away thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou shalt find the images of thy idols, let him die before his time. Before all our brethren take knowledge of what with me is thine, and take it. But Jacob knew not that Rahel had stolen them. And Laban went into the tent of Jacob, and into the tent of Leah, and into the tent of the 2 concubines, but found not. And he went out from the tent of Leah, and entered the tent of Rahel. But Rahel had taken the images, and laid them in the panniers of the camels, and sat upon them. And he searched all the tent, but found not. And she said, Let it not be displeasing in my Lord's eyes that I am not able to arise before thee, because I have the way of women. And he searched, but found not the images. And the anger of Jacob took fire, and he contended with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my sin, and what my transgression, that thou hast so eagerly come after me? Having therefore searched all my vessels, what hast thou found of all the vessels of thy house? Lay now the matter before my brethren and thy brethren, and let them decide the truth between us two. These 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy goats have not failed. And the price of the rams of the flock I have not eaten, that torn by wild beasts I have not brought to thee, for had I sent from my hand thou wouldst have required it. What was stolen in the day by men, that have I made good, and what was stolen in the night by wild beasts was made good also. Jerusalem, the dead I have not brought to thee, every one which had fled from the number I have made that good, of my hands thou hast required it. And what thieves stole by day, or wild beasts devoured by night, I have made good. I have been in the field by day, the heat hath devoured me, and the cold by night, and sleep hath been parted from me. These 20 years have I been in thy house, serving thee, 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy sheep, and thou hast changed my wages 10 parts. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and he whom Isaac feareth, had been in my help, even now hadst thou sent me away empty. But my affliction and the travail of my hands are manifest before the Lord, and therefore he admonished thee in the evening. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, The children whom thou hast received of thy wives are my children, and the children whom they may bear will be reputed as mine, and the sheep are my sheep, and all that thou seest is mine. And for my daughters what can I do this day, and for the soils which they have borne? And now come, let us strike a covenant, I and thou, and it shall be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said to his sons, whom he called his brethren, Collect stones. And they collected stones, and made a mound, and they ate upon the mound. And Laban called it Ogar-Sahid, but Jacob called it in the holy tongue Galeed. And the observatory also it was called, because he said, The Lord shall observe between me and thee, when we are hidden each man from his neighbour, if thou shalt afflict my daughters, doing them injury, and if thou take upon my daughters, there is no man to judge us. The word of the Lord, seeing is the witness between me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this mound, and behold the pillar which thou hast reared between me and thee. This mound is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I may not pass beyond this mound to thee, and that thou mayest not pass beyond this mound and this pillar to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nachor shall judge between us, the God of the fathers. But Jacob sware by the God whom his father Isaac feared. And Jacob slew sacrifices in the mount, and invited his kinsmen who came with Laban to help themselves to bread, or strengthen themselves with bread, and they helped themselves to bread, and lodged in the mount. And Laban arose in the morning, and kissed the sons of Jacob and his daughters, and blessed them, and Laban went and returned to his place. 32. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of the Lord met him. And Jacob said when he saw them, These are not the host of Esau who are coming to meet me, nor the host of Laban who have returned from pursuing me, but they are the host of the holy angels who are sent from before the Lord. Therefore the name of that place he called, in the language of the sanctuary, Machanian, Jerusalem. And Jacob, when he beheld them, said, Perhaps they are a host from Laban, the brother of my mother, coming to set against me the array of battle to slay me, or rather they are a host of the holy angels from before the Lord, who are come to save me from their hands. And he called the name of that place Machanaim.